Yeah, hello everyone. Let's get back again on the topic, which is very, very interesting in itself, entrepreneurship. In entrepreneurship, in the series of the topics we are discussing, we are just going to talk about the competencies any entrepreneur needs to have, the capacity any person which needs to have, any behavioral trait which leads a person to meet the job demands or which helps him obtaining those parameters which is required for that particular organization to grow in this specific environment, or which basically let a person turn things which bring the desired results. So competency is considered to be an underlying characteristic that an individual brings to a job situation which can result in effective or superior performance in any job. When we are talking about entrepreneurial competencies, we are definitely talking about a person. We are talking about any individual who has a vision and underlying creation towards his new venture. He needs to have a generic or specific knowledge about the product, his motive. He needs to be self motivated, some traits, skill set, some image, some social roles, responsibilities, skill set, which can be further worked on. That person need to have those type of abilities. So competency is the composition of knowledge, skill, abilities, characteristics which is required for the effective or successful job performance. These competencies or attributes are observable and measurable, and these attributes distinguish between superior and other performers. In fact, the competency is a wider concept that includes the knowledge, attitude, behavior, and skill set which help a person being capable of performing his ideas into realities with an excellence in its performance, or maybe who is looking forward to have a behavior to demonstrate an excellent performance, or who has certain knowledge, who is looking forward to apply that knowledge for the product's success. So competency just do not include the skill. It only helps you intriguing the characteristics you have it in you in the form of skill set, and being able to observe the upgraded skills you need to require to produce the success. So finally, competencies are not what work motives. It do not include the observable behavior. It basically includes a concept. It basically includes the ability to foresee the change, the technological advancement any company would require to assess to obtain the desired results. It talks about very different, like competencies or environmental forces which help any organization to grow. So, an entrepreneur is expected to interact with these environmental forces and various dimensions like the intellectual, which is required for the performance of job, the attitude, the behavior, the technical side of the story, the managerial attributes. And entrepreneur is permanently challenged with these competencies, whereas he is looking forward to bring in various resources, various skill set, various managerial aspects to continuously thrive on his entrepreneurial endeavor to make it a success. So entrepreneur has need to have a competency or need to have a trait, need to have an attitude or behavior or skill set or knowledge towards achieving the desired results. So he is a person who recognizes the opportunities, understand the gap analysis, being able to have an aggressive plan, being able to approach with the right action, being able to create a right blueprint so that organization is lead towards the success. He is the person who is looking forward to encompass to maximize the profit and contribute in the economic as well as social well-being of the society. Looking forward to lead the team, looking forward to venture into the right gap which is required. So he is a catalyst of economic or business activities. He is the person who is looking forward to contribute or compound all the attributes which are required. So the concept of entrepreneurship will have the components in the form of attributes, people, and will have the right combination of skill set and the technology. So here we are going to discuss more about the type of competencies any person would have. One would be the personal entrepreneurial competency, or second would be the venture based, which is looking forward to obtain the success. When we are discussing about the personal or entrepreneurial competency, it needs to have the right attitude towards the judgment, judgment between the resources. Having a self confidence is a very good thing which any entrepreneur needs to have. But that confidence need to be a realistic belief in himself, realistic confidence and respect towards himself and his ability to capitalize with the right worth of his thoughts and his ability to capture, so that you are able to conceptualize the right interest and needs of the gap which is there in the market. Second, which is very important when we are talking about the institution based or venture based success competitiveness, it has a lot of vision. It has any entrepreneur needs to have a right ability to deal with the failure, because every failure teaches you a lot. It teaches you where what went wrong. It taught you, like people learn from their mistake. It helped you to learn from them. It helped you to quickly recover from them, to change your direction and move towards the future. So any entrepreneur needs to have a right tolerance for ambiguity. Like, it's not necessary that every entrepreneur will always be right. You need to have the right desirable ambitions, the right challenges, the right interests, so that you have been able to handle the complexities of the organization or complexities of the business behavior. So the performance of a success entrepreneur will have the right choice, the right differentiative ability to choose the right way, right path, right faster, better, or cheap method, or which is that method which is helping in elevating the existing standard of the organization. So often we talk about locus of control. Locus of control is basically a system of belief of any individual who perceives that outcome of an event as being either within or beyond his personal control. So entrepreneurs tend to believe in their own ability to control the outcomes of their efforts by influencing the existing environment rather than leaving everything on the luck. So they are the people who strongly believe that they can shape up their own destiny. So, when we are talking about the mindset of an entrepreneur, we are talking about the personal entrepreneurial competencies. When we are talking about personal entrepreneurial competencies, we are talking about the behavioral competencies. Competencies often talk about the casual behavior any person would have, or maybe the relationship between the superior and the subordinate, which helps creating the process in the organization, which help creating elevating the performance in the organization. So these attributes are very important to take the organization in a better format, so that every organization is being able to have the right differentiative foot in the competition. The need. The need is the gap analysis, the need that why any entrepreneur would like to compete, the need of understanding the gap. We often feel that every business shapes up just because of the one need of making profit out of it. But entrepreneur works in a different format. He would always strive for the satisfaction. He would always look forward to have the real-time personal productivity. He would have certain personal effectiveness which would lead his competencies to grow, and he would like to always overcome the disabilities he would have in the taking the business ability to a different level. He would always strive for different responsibilities, looking forward for different opportunities, and recognize the potential to work ahead than the competition or look forward to perform better than that of his competitor. So technically, we are identifying he's been very, very persistent. When we are talking about personal entrepreneurship, it requires a lot of decision making ability, leadership ability. But moving ahead with the leadership ability, any entrepreneur need to have a lot of persistence, which keeps him constantly motivated to go ahead and confront all the obstacles which help him to grow, which help him to accept the desire to grow, which help him to uh, you know take the venture to a different level. Then comes assertiveness. Assertiveness is a behavioral aspect which affirms his rights, his points of view without being aggressive, without either being aggressive or rigid or submissive towards the ideologies or thoughts. Any successful entrepreneur needs to be very, very assertive, need to be very, very achievable, need to have high spirit, high persistency level, high pursuit for goals, need to have autonomy. When we talk about the need for autonomy, it is characterized by a drive to control and influence others. He is looking forward to win arguments, need to persuade, need to prevail, so that any person who is looking forward to control or influence or power the decisions in the enterprise is looking forward to thrive. If he's an entrepreneur, he's looking forward to thrive for an achievement, for a responsibility, for a result, of course. So let's assess the leadership qualities any entrepreneur would have. He needs to have an integrative model. Integrative model talks a lot about drive and energy. Drive, which is a within, and energy, which is a force which is helping him with lot of abundance of self-confidence, self-motivation to innovate, to have a right behavioral pattern, who is looking forward to create a right interest and desire to seek the changes and techniques, and was ready to introduce such changes in the organization where practical accessibility or the feasibility analysis is being conducted for the performance of that particular goal. So when we are talking about the integrative model basically enable the entrepreneur emerge as a leader who is able to focus on the research, being able to understand the competencies, and being able to go ahead with the whole thing. Then comes the motivation, which is very, very important in any organization which is led by entrepreneur or any entrepreneur who is evolving with any venture with the right concept. So when we're talking about a motivation, what motivation is? Motivation is basically an inner desire. It is a competency attribute I would talk about, which helps you to find the right way to remain motivated or being able to remain competent always, so that your approach is very, very competent and your approach is always consistent and sustainable. You always have an urge to create the right discipline for yourself or right decision for the organization. For example, by selecting from the right resources, being able to start and successfully manage the desired business. This calls for the entrepreneurs to personally seek and obtain information that is required to enable them to make decisions and improvise on the knowledge on his or their or like their business, so that you have been able to remain competent always, and you have always been able to contribute in the society in the right format. Then comes the risk-taking ability. When we are talking about the risk-taking ability, I guess before risk-taking ability, we need to understand any entrepreneur need to be very, very systematic in his planning. His problem-solving ability has to be amazing, because if he is not a creative thinker, if he doesn't have the right ability to resolve the problems or being able to link the right things things which or parameters which influence the business decisions of individual, of groups, of agencies, of creditors, of daters, of customers, or even competitors, in order to maintain or in order to contact the good rapport, you will never be able to have the right risk taking ability. When we are talking about the risk taking ability, it helps you to achieve goal. It helps you to obtain the right goals which you have set it for yourself, for which you have always been like you always have worked hard, you had the right patience for it, you had the right endurance, you had the right ability to remain calm in the difficult times. So when we are talking about the risk-taking ability has a lot to do with able to learn from your failures, being able to reborn, being able to bring in the right orientation in yourself so that you're able to conceptualize or capitalize on the right business risk-taking attributes you have, so that you have been able to lead the organization in very good format. First, in risk-taking ability comes the decision-making attribute, which talks about the idea, plan, and action. So when we are talking about the idea, plan, and action, we are talking about, or we are in competency, we are talking about the ability of an entrepreneur to see what market wants, how effectively you will be able to sustain your business decision, how effectively or intelligently you'll be able to contribute in the society with the right format, how best your decision making ability would be, so that your corporate decisions are bringing in very, very low level of dissatisfaction or conflict, so that you are able to attain the right competency. So when we are talking about competency, we are trying to assess the workplace competency over here. You have been able to calculate the right risk, you have been able to have the right tolerance from the failure, being able to understand, being able to perceive, being able to express, and being able to negotiate, so that you're being able to contribute in the society by understanding from your failures. In hospitality industry, it is very, very important, because hospitality is always undergoing some of the drastic changes. This is an industry which is always evolving. Here you always see a customer shift from virtual to reality, to their changing travel needs or habits, to new industry players always being able to bring in new strategies, and always novel challenges, which or maybe enormous business opportunities which you would feel in the field of hospitality is quite confusing. So every entrepreneur needs to have the right self confidence, right optimism, right independence, and right team building attribute, so that you have been able to sustain in the market for long. You have been able to conceptualize the unparalleled potential which your innovation or your entrepreneurship ability can have, or the growth or expansion that particular innovative idea can bring in your organization, that you need to understand with the right team. So to attain that, you need to have a right workplace competency, because when we are talking about a business, we are not talking about an individual. Business is made by so many people who have been part of that particular business framework. When we are talking about so many people who have been part of that business framework, we are talking about a team. We are talking about an individual who is working on his skill set, bringing in his expertise, abilities, his finances, his insecurities, and his ability to make the best out of it. When we are talking about the application of knowledge, skill set, attitude, values, behavior, finances, that is where we are talking about he being able to value and recognize the opportunity with the people he's working with in the right team, and that time needs to be right, and that team needs to be rightly rewarded, so that team further feel the value and recognition in the organization. So workplace competency would always require networking, planning, organizing, problem solving ability, decision making, and the right teamwork, wherein you have been able to compete with the right team, you have been able to take everybody ahead, you have been able to step out of your specific knowledge, you have been able to understand what market wants, you have been able to understand what rates industry require, you have been able to assess on the right competency the organization requires, which is more than you. So, an entrepreneur competencies would talk about an individual, and entrepreneurial competencies, when we are talking about a company framework, would need to be framed out in a format where everybody is contributing. The experts are contributing. You are being able to assess on the right concerns the organization needs to address on to increase the efficiency. You need to assess the confidence level individual portrays, the assertiveness, the persuasion, the influencing strategies, or the improvised or uh, required leadership any person in an individual or any team needs to have, which is concerned with the welfare of the organization. So on so the model of entrepreneurial motivation, as we discussed in our earlier presentation as well, it is an array, it is a continuous loop which start with the expectation. So expectation could be now divided into two formats. One would be an individual expectation and the outcome comparison, what you are expecting to invest and the outcome you're looking forward to receive. It could be monetary, it could be psychological, it could be something else. Every individual would have a certain level of motivation which will help him thrive with his intrinsic or extrinsic rewards, so that entrepreneurial strategy is helping him able to manage his resources and being able to produce the firm outcomes, and company be able to achieve the right mover advantage or the right place in the society in the form of competition, being able to sustain, being able to remain dynamic, being able to remain influencing, being able to create, innovate. So when we are talking about being able to create and innovate, it is a process, it is continuous in nature. So every idea could be a good idea, but not necessarily every idea is a good idea. You have to have a right team, you have to have right customer base, right marketing strategy, right research, right organizational goals, right strategy, right budget, right innovation, right segmentation, right product analysis, right planning, media planning, branding strategies, your organizational development, your socio securities, your marketing tools, your target setting, your designing, your customization, that leads to the success of a brand. So at the end of it, when we are talking about an idea, if an idea is being composed with all these strategies, then it leads to a very, very good idea. A good idea leads to intrinsic rewards, which becomes a game changer, which help any organization to have the right motivation, maybe for his stakeholders, maybe for an entrepreneur in the form of business returns, maybe for the team, because team would be getting rewarded through the right financial understanding. Creativity always takes courage if rewarded well. Entrepreneurial imagination and creativity always gets rewarded through the rewards which are extrinsic in nature. So extrinsic reward would be monetary. At times it is greater than the salary, or it is greater than the monetary or the amount which is being paid for. It has to have a bigger picture: the career continuity, the opportunity, the security, which helps you being able to squeeze on the margins and being able to remain sustainable in the competition. So where the innovation and performance lead the companies to grow, that is where the sales increases, profit increases, market share increases, company enjoy extrinsic rewards, and companies are being able to enjoy creating their own organization where extrinsic profits are helping them being able to be go ahead of the competition, and companies are being able to have their own personal agenda where there's a plunge of opportunities for every entrepreneur to grow, where you have been able to identify the right product and service which is sustainable for the market, which is feasible for the market, which has been obtained after the right analysis and the right decision